Warning! Today's book reading might be total garbage because the reader of today's book is sick. Please do not indulge in this book unless you are ready to listen, know how to read, or just honestly like enjoying the company. Viewer discretion is advised.
Hello everyone, my name's Stonesy Boy, and as you can tell, or maybe not, I don't know, I'm sick, so that sucks. Anyway, today we're reading pages 22 to 41, which means we're reading 19 pages. Shouldn't be that long, so without further ado, let's begin. Chapter 5. In the days that following the burning of the heart tree, the memory of the stranger's words and actions hung over Plaintown like a curse. But days became weeks as Bobbie returned to her routine. The boy was soon forgotten, more or less. He left his mark, though. Bobbie now started her days by checking the town square. He had removed the makeshift dirt barrier, and the grass had grown back quickly after that. The tree itself was another matter, and not easily fixed. Bobbie had planted 4 small saplings in the hope that they would intertwine as they grew. Maybe, one day, they would grow into a great tree, the rival of the one that had been lost. But that day, it never came. It was a long way off. Come on, little one, she coaxed. Grow big and strong. You know you can do it. Farmer Breyer honked at her. Bone meal? Where would I get bone meal, she asked. It's not like I'm going to fight a skeleton. The farmer honked again, and Shepherd Ellis claimed to agree. Well, I appreciate the vote of confidence, you two, Bobbie said. I'll keep it in mind. Night came early. The midday sun had began its slow dip into the western horizon when it disappeared behind a thick wall of clouds. Bobbie felt a chill as the daylight suddenly dimmed. There must be a storm coming, she said. She had no idea. The wind picked up and the thunder pealed in the distance. Bobbie hurried to finish what she was doing. She strayed from the village again to a small cluster of oak trees. The trees stuck from a flat plain like a single tuft of unruly hair, or like hand grasping upward in a grave. Bobbie had come here to relish her supplies. She could never have too much oak, but as a bolt of lightning flashed in the horizon, she decided to cut her errand short. Getting caught in a thunderstorm would be dangerous, and not just because of the elements. Sometimes if a cloud cover was thick enough, nocturnal creatures would come out during the daytime storm. Somehow, Bobbie didn't think her wooden axe would be much good against the monster. The first drops of rain tap danced across her shoulders as she crossed into the village. She passed Goalie, who stood watching the plains for signs of danger, or maybe the golem was just intrigued by the lightning. As always, Goalie was oblivious to the rain, making no effort to seek shelter. Bobbie was glad the golem couldn't rust. As she hurried through the center of the town, Bobbie saw her neighbors running to and fro, and all rushed to finish their task. It's gonna be the big one, I think, she said to a weaponsmith who stood at an anvil, putting the finishing touches on a new sword. The villager grunted in agreement. The window shutter clacked in the wind. Farmer Breyer's crops swayed wildly. Lightning flashed overhead, and Bobbie ran at least a few yards to her home, swiftly closing the door behind her. Through a window, she could see the drizzle become a downpour. She made it indoors just in time. Phew, she said, leaning against the closed door. Her parents looked up, startled by the sudden entrance. They offered her a bowl of soup. Thanks, that sounds good, she said, but where's Johnny? Her parents honked. What do you mean you don't know? There's a storm out there. They muttered defensively. Then put a bell on him, he said. You can't be out there unsupervised all the time. Bobbie huffed. He braced herself and then threw open a door and ran out into the rain. Within a second, she was drenched. Actually, that is exactly what she hoped to avoid. Bobbie was going to get a good scolding. She just had to find him first. There was no choice but to go door to door. She knew she wouldn't be outdoors. She checked the shepherd and the farmer, the cartographer and the librarian. None of them had seen her brother. Thunder rumbled angrily over the village, and Bobbie grumbled with it. She was soaked, though. Her boots felt heavy and squished at every step, and she had a dozen buildings to check. It was getting darker out, too. She would scarcely see a thing. A flash of lightning gave Bobbie a fleeting view of her surroundings. She saw a figure standing in her path, right in the middle of the dirt road. It could even be her brother. He was dying when you have to wander around in a storm like this one. Besides, the figure was too tall to be her brother. Clara Gaver, is that you? She asked. Or Shepherd Ellis? Her voice sounded faint with her own ears. The figure didn't seem to hear her at all, but it was hard to see anything. Hello? She called, raising her voice that heard over the storm. Who's there? The figure's head snapped up. She had its attention at least. She immediately realized her mistake. "Zombie," said Bobbie, her voice a whisper. The zombie fixed her with its gaze. The eyes with dark swells of the hunger lurched forward. Although this is some distance away, it lifted its arms as if grasping for her. It uttered a groan, mindless and hollow, like a rumbling of an empty stomach. Bobbie knew it wanted to eat her. He spun in her heels and ran. Home wasn't far. She could make it. So as long as she didn't turn around, she just had to trust the zombie wouldn't catch her. That was the right behind her, closing the distance, so it could grasp her, drag her down, and bite into her. She was worried about the zombie behind her, that she didn't see the one in front of her until it was nearly too late. But the girl had saved her, alerting her of the danger in her path. She looked up and saw the clutching hands, green with rot, reaching out to receive her. She skidded to a stop, slipping to the ground. The second zombie loomed above her, and she kicked out of it, pushing away the scrabbling back at her feet. She ran in a new direction. The path home was blocked. She ducked into an alleyway. The darkness was unnerving, but it worked to her advantage. Both zombies had been pursuing her, shambling past her hiding place. She held her breath, not staring in the exhale until they were out of sight. Even in her breath, Bobbie realized something important. One zombie was bad luck. Two zombies might be something worse. A flash of lightning proved her suspicions right. Terrifyingly so, in a momentary strobe of light, she saw figures spread throughout the town. A dozen, at least. And every one of them was a zombie. It was a siege. The town was under attack. Bobbie screamed, and then realized that was the last thing she should have done. She clamped her hands down over her, worried that the scream would bring right to her. But she was lucky. The peal thunder masked the sound of her panic. The zombies still shambled mindlessly around the town. She could just see their outlines set against deeper darkness of the storm. Her first thought was of Johnny. Everyone else was safely tucked away at home. She had a story for that. What about her brother? She would have sought refuge in the storm too, but as soon as the rain stopped, he could step outside right into a horde of flesh-eating undead mobs. Bobbie needed to raise the alarm. She had to let everyone know about the danger. She thought about screaming again, but she thought only bring the villagers running. They'd be helpless against the horde. Slowly, carefully, she edged herself to the edge of the valley, peering into the storm. She could see the town square, the light of the torches. Standing in front of the four saplings of the wooden arch, and hanging from that arch, glinting in the torchlight, was a bell. If Bobbie could ring the bell, the whole town would know Johnny was in danger. They know to stay indoors and to keep Johnny indoors too. Just one problem. Between Bobbie and the bell, there's at least 4 zombies. She might as well to get past 1 or 2 of them, but 4? It was impossible. And even if she got past them somehow, they might even make it to the bell. The moment she rang it, every zombie in the area would know exactly where to find her. It would be like ringing the dinner bell. This shift her weight back and forth. Consider your options. None of them were good. "Come on, Bobbie," she whispered. "You can do this. Don't be a chicken." Chicken! That was it. Did it? As soon as she said the words, she thought of Farmer Briar's prize-worthy poultry. If Bobbie was smart and careful, if she did everything just right, those chickens just might save the entire village. Chapter 6. Bobbie knew Plaintown inside and out. She could have drawn a map in her sleep, and she could have walked to the town center of the front door of any given building with her eyes closed without stomping on a single flower. That's why she decided to destroy the torches. And she had to force herself to do it. Something deep inside her howled at the idea of making the village even darker. But she knew rationally that the dark would give her an advantage. It would make her harder spot as she made her way. Carefully, slowly, painstakingly, so too for the farmer's enclosure at the north end of the village. On the other side of the fence, 2 chickens, Sally and Sue, clucked and cooed, going about their business as if they don't have a care in the world. "A little warning would have been nice," she whispered at him. "You know, like cock-a-doodle-doo, you know there's zombies invading. What would have gone a long way. Maybe next time?" Zoe clucked lightly. "Fine," said Bobbie, and she wiped a freshly laid egg. "But I'm taking this." Bobbie looked to the north. She couldn't see far. The storm swallowed the normally picturesque view of the farmer's field. She knew the vast expanse of open grassland stretched before her. Anything might be lurking out there, and normally that knoll edge was enough to make her glad of the safety of the village. But the village wasn't safe now. It could actually be smarter for Bobbie to head out into the plains and turn back and try to reach the bell in the center of the town. Sometimes the smart move was too selfish to even consider, she whispered to herself. Sue clucked as if agreeing with her. "You can say that again," Bobbie said, and she clucked at her egg in her chest. "Back I go." Bobbie took her care of and considered her every step. She stuck close to every building, where the shadows pulled most darkly. She was determined to take her time so that she wouldn't make any careless mistakes. And then the rain slowed, and Bobbie knew she had to hurry. If the storm ended, her neighbors would finally might step outside and be overwhelmed. She picked up the pace, sliding along the oaken walls, stepping lightly but swiftly. Within minutes, she rounded a corner, and the town center came into view. Its bell was tantalizingly close, but there was no more buildings to hide behind. Between her and the bell, nothing but open air, and the walking dead. The ran up completely, and Bobbie knew she had no more time to waste. She hefted the egg in her hand, testing its weight, and let it fly. Then the tremendous splat, the egg shattered against the bell. The bell swung back and then forward, then back again, and it was moved. It sung out, clang, clang, clang. Bobbie wanted to cheer. She'd done it. She alerted the village of the danger they were in, but she alerted the zombies too. Bobbie hoped the zombies said she would be drawn to the bell, giving her time to slip away. But one had seen the egg that as it soared through the air, and then its sweep of the night black eyes, it had found her. The zombie groaned loudly, drawing the attention of its companions. Within seconds, every zombie in the square had Bobbie in its sights. Bobbie spun around, and she needed to get indoors. It didn't matter where the temple was closest. But there were zombies between her and the temple. In that case, the smithy. No, the zombies were closing from that direction too. Bobbie turned into a tight circle. Everywhere she looked, everywhere she might try to run, there were zombies, shambling toward with their arms outstretched, reaching forward to her. She stumbled as she spun, tripping over her own feet. The circle of ghouls closed in around her. She couldn't fight it anymore. She screamed. Bobbie crawled into a ball, desperate to avoid the touch of the undead for as long as she could. She closed her eyes tight. She could hear the zombies' footsteps echoing in the night, almost sounding like a low, distant thunder in the storm. Only, that was strange, wasn't it? The footsteps sounded too loud, too heavy to belong to a zombie. She opened her eyes and saw the zombie go flying through the air. There was only one thing Bobbie knew was the power to send him up flying like that. Goalie had come to her rescue. The iron golem was carrying a path for her, fighting its way through a cluster of the undead. The zombies all around her shifted its focus to the oncoming threat, turning away to the Bobbie and swarming the golem instead. Goalie's great iron fist swung back and forth, and zombie after zombie was knocked off its feet. Bobbie felt elation at the sight, but it was short-lived. As mighty as Goalie was, the golem was vastly outnumbered. The injured zombies got back up again, rejoining their brethren. They encircled Goalie, punching and clawing and biting at the metallic hide. Bobbie saw cracks spread across that hide. As Goalie's shining skin took more and more damage. That spurred her into action. The closest thing she had to a weapon was her wooden axe, but it would have to do. She leaped forward, swinging the tool in front of her, battling zombies aside. They barely noticed her. They kept all their aggressive focus on the golem, and she pressed forward. She had to help Goalie, as Goalie had helped her. Suddenly, her axe shattered against the zombie's skull. What she should have known, the axe had never been intended as a weapon, and she wore it down like chopping wood out in the plain. She reached in her inventory for another weapon. She had to be something, and then Goalie struck her. Bobbie didn't know what happened at first. She only knew that she felt pain and that she was flying backwards. She landed right at the door of the temple, almost as if she'd been thrown to safety. She looked back to where Goalie stood. The golem would head taller than any zombie, but the undead swarmed to construct, climbing atop one another to overwhelm it. Goalie gazed out at the other fracas and met Bobbie's eyes. She expected to see the golem's features twist in rage or pain or even fear, but Goalie was expressionless as ever. Did Golem know it had saved her life? Did the knowledge bring it any peace? Bobbie searched the construct's eyes for answers, and then Bobbie landed the killing blow. Goalie's iron skin cracked and splintered. The golem uttered a final tortured breath and saw a stony death rattle, and then shattered. "Goalie!" she screamed. "No!" The zombies immediately turned their attention back to her. Bobbie whirled around, throwing herself against the temple door, and slammed it down open. As soon as she crossed the threshold, she slammed it shut again. She watched as the closed door mounting dread. And would the zombies pursue her, or was she finally safe? Footsteps surrounded behind her, and Bobbie lashed out instinctively to her elbows. She clocked Eric Avery right in the face. "Sorry," said Bobbie, "you startled me." The cleric honked in irritation, but upon seeing the state Bobbie was in, the voice had softened with concern. "I'm okay," answered Bobbie, "but they got Goalie." Cleric Avery's faces dropped. They nodded sadly, and then reaching out to touch Bobbie's shoulder, the cleric promised they were safe in the temple. But that was when a door shattered into splinters, and the zombies started storming the building. Chapter 7. The temple broken doorway spat forth an endless stream of the undead. Bobbie and the cleric, both weaponless, were immediately surrounded. Bobbie pushed and punched her attackers, pulling Avery to her greedy, grasping hands. She narrowly avoided the zombies' gnashed teeth. She moved, said Bobbie, and she gripped the cleric's arm and tugged. "Come on!" She ran for the stairs, dragging Cleric Avery around behind her. The villagers stumbled but didn't complain. They took the stairs two at a time, faster than the zombies could follow. Moonlight shone through the yellow stained glass windows. The staircase was a dead end. Eventually, they would run out of stairs, but Bobbie would only deal with one problem at a time. Suddenly, Cleric Avery began to tremble. "Don't be afraid," Bobbie said. "It's going to be okay. Maybe," she thought. Avery slipped on her grip, sinking suddenly in her knees. "Don't stop now. She would have to keep moving," said Bobbie. "They were right behind us, and you," she squinted at a better look at the dim light. "Cleric Avery, are you still right? You look kind of green." Cleric Avery's head snapped. Their skin has mottled, moldy, great shade of green, and their eyes showed an unnatural red, roaring an inhuman threat. The cleric lunged for Bobbie. Bobbie leaped back, panicking. She had the only thing she could think to do. She punched a stained glass window beside her, then dove out of the window into the night. She fell only a short distance before landing on the temple stone ledge. As it was a long way down, she tried not to look below as she crawled along the edge, intended to put the distance between herself and the undead pursuers. Cleric Avery, frothing at the mouth, stood with a broken window, groaning in frustration and menace. Bobbie choked back a sob. She had known the cleric her whole life. She remembered the potion of healing the cleric had given her when she skinned her knee. She recalled lightly the less grumpy than usual look on Avery's face whenever the wandering trader left them with just the right ingredient for brewing something new. That person was gone now. Avery must have been bitten by a zombie when they got surrounded. The change had taken only seconds. She looked at the sky. The storm had ended, and the clouds had moved across the plain. Now she could see the moon, low in the eastern sky. That meant it was early. The zombies had towers to terrorize the village before the sun could drive them away. For a moment, Bobbie thought it was staying on the temple's roof, out of sight, out of the way, out of danger. That's when she heard a sound of wood splintering, as if followed by panicking, honking, ravenous groans. The horde had broken into the other building. They attacked more of her neighbors, and her brave brother was still out there somewhere. Bobbie couldn't afford to hide. She had to act. She hurried across the roof and far side of the temple, checking to make sure no zombies awaited her below. She slid to the ground and hurt, a little, to fall so far, but she could take a little hurt. She knew now there was no way to survive this night unscathed. Next door was a smithy, where she had seen the weaponsmith working on a sword as the siege had began. She crept into the open deck, alert of any sign of danger, peering into the window. Bobbie saw the structure was empty. She hoped the weaponsmith had made it to safety, but she remembered she had stubborn about going inside and the raid had started. The zombies might easily have gotten the weaponsmith before Bobbie had rung the warning bell. There was a new iron sword sitting atop the anvil. That was some small bit of luck, at least. Armed, at least, Bobbie crouched to the sunken decks, trailing. Chaos reigned over Plaintown. The Fletcher's hut had caught fire, casting the whole village in heart-cheery light. Zombies were everywhere, shambling up and down the dirt path that ran through town, and now some of the zombies were familiar with Bobbie. The weaponsmith shuffled past, still wearing their apron and eye patch, but their remaining eye glowed red, and their teeth gnashed in unholy hunger as they shuffled aimlessly past their abandoned home. Home, Bobbie canned for her head, but she couldn't quite see her own house from here. She ran around the back of Smithy, walking around the outskirts of town, sticking close to the building she passed. There was no back door in her house. She was going around to the front and felt too risky, so she hacked her way in. Not the best use for a sword, but new and sharp and it would last for a while. Inside, her worst fears were confirmed. The house was a mess. Furniture was overturned. Pictures had fallen from the walls, and all the remaining front doors broke in splinters. No sign of her parents, but maybe they'd gotten away. Maybe they were okay. Bobbie heard a cry from outside, and she ran to the door. The cry came from the village cartographer, Haven, who stood trembling on the lawn outside as several zombies closed in. Bobbie sprang into action, leaping over the porch rail and rushing toward her neighbor. She caught several zombies by surprise, slashing them with her sword and forcing them back. It was enough to give her an opening. She leaned forward, grabbed Haven's arm, and pulled the cartographer free from the attackers. Bobbie held Haven back toward the house, but the cartographer had other ideas. They pulled against Bobbie's grip, gesturing to follow in their direction. "Where are you going?" Bobbie asked. "They've taken the whole town." Haven corrected her in her hushed arms and haws. "Survivors," Bobbie said. "Gathering at the library?" Her heart swelled with hope. But the library was just the far side of town. "This way," Bobbie hissed, pulling Haven in between two buildings. Their light of the moon could reach them. "We have to be careful, otherwise we'll lead those things right to the others." Bobbie took Haven on a twisting, circuitous route through town, staying strictly to the shadows, pausing whenever the sound of shuffling footsteps drew too near. Then, at last, they made it to the library. They saw the building's iron door and kept evading at bay. Bobbie had installed the door herself and attempted baby-proofing the library against Johnny's mischief. She could see inside the door the pressure plate would open, but if they had to fight their way through several zombies to reach it. And after the happened at Avery, it felt too risky to drag a cartographer through the gauntlet of ghouls. "I have another idea," whispered Bobbie. She drew her sword. "Cover me." Going back around, Bobbie hacked her way into the library. There was a small group of villagers huddled inside, and seeing the hole Bobbie had made in her sanctuary, they protested loudly. But one voice rose above all the others, a baby gurgling cheer. "Johnny!" she cried. But she rushed to her brother, sweeping up in her arms. "Are you okay? Are your parents here?" Johnny cooed sadly. "We'll find them," Bobbie promised. Bobbie's back, Haven stepped through the hole of the wall and then gestured manly at the honking of Bobbie's attention. "Yeah, I know," said Bobbie. She set Johnny down and walked to the hole, plunging into the blocks of oak. "That should hold," she said, and she crammed the worried face of the villagers where few of them left. This is everybody?" she asked. Farmer Briar mothered sadly, and another villager had picked in Bobbie's hands. "What do you want me to do with that?" said Bobbie. "Dig us a tunnel out of town?" She shook her head. "We're safer here. I don't think those things can break through iron door. Besides, there might be survivors out there. We can't just abandon them." At this, a great cacophony went up, as all the villagers argued with Bobbie, with one another, each of them determined to voice their opinion of the best course of action. "That's enough, Bobbie," said Bobbie. Adding her voice to the cacophony, she pleaded for calm, quiet, but no one was listening. Then fists pounded against the door. The villagers all felt silent. The inhuman growls left no mystery to who was at the other side of the door. The beacon continued. "They can't break through," Bobbie said again. I'm pretty sure." She looked at her brother and then the tool in their hand. "Maybe we dig just in case. I can carve out a basement, put an extra barrier between us and them." The tireless fist continued to knocking at the door. Bobbie set the pickaxe to the ground and dug. She was expecting to find solid layers of dirt and stone beneath the library. Maybe some coal or even iron. She was not expecting light from pouring up from underground. "What in the world was that?" she asked as she bent over for another look. But before she could make sense of the unexpected light, a dark, fast-moving shape sprung from the hole. It caught Bobbie right in the face, filling her vision with darkness and causing her head to fall backward. The boom erupted into chaos. Villagers screamed and crying and scrambled for safety. "It's a bat," Bobbie said, struggling to be heard over the panic. "It's just a bat." But it was too late to calm the crowd. In their panic, desperate to escape, Farmer Briar stepped to the pressure plate that opened the front door. It was a tragic mistake. Before Briar could take a single step to the threshold, a zombie lunged forward, biting Farmer savagely. "No!" Bobbie cried, and she stepped across the room with 3 quick strides. Slashing out of the pickaxe, she knocked the zombie back and away from Farmer Briar. Just the iron door slammed shut again, trapping the zombie outside, and trapping the rest of them inside with an infected Farmer Briar. "Stay back," said Bobbie. She held a pickaxe out in front of her, and her hands trembled. She didn't want to use the weapon on her neighbor. Farmer Briar showed no hesitation. Mouth frothing, eyes burning red, they lunged for Bobbie. She knew she was done for. But then Johnny was there. Poor sweet baby Johnny, wholeheartedly fearless and tender Johnny, was leaping between Bobbie and her attacker. Bobbie screamed for her to stay back, but Johnny never did listen to her. The Farmer Briar's attack meant for Bobbie found her brother instead. Bobbie steadied quickly, pulling Johnny out of Zombie's grasp. They carried her brother away from the danger, toward the back of the library, where she cradled him in her arms, rocking him back and forth. "It's going to be okay," she promised, and she thought it might be true. Right until the moment Johnny's eyes turned red. And that's the end of that. Now the real book starts, aka the zombies part of the book. So yeah. I also wanted to say something about the picture in the corner, the one that right now says zombies. That picture actually is specifically picked out for the type of book I own. So I think there's actually a hard copy of this book, a hard stone copy. So basically like a hard copy with the picture on it. That's actually the one of the hard copy with the weird little Briar thing on it, you know, the little slab of paper. That's what that is. Anyways, next episode we have an easy day as well. I think looking at all the episodes real quick, 42 to 60, like 60 pure, I think. Yeah, 41 to 60, or 42 to 60. I'm sorry. Looking at all of them, besides from episode 6, I think, we have very easy episodes. So yeah, so we're going to chapter 8. We might actually have to move the chapter, which would be the first time in Stone's history where the chapter gets moved, which is cool. To chapter 11. So yep, it's being moved. Oh, I almost canceled all that. Oh, whoop. Cool. But yeah. So I can actually list you guys every single chapter real quick. Just to see if I'm wrong. Like the worst as in longest episode, by the way. So we have 42 to 60, 61 to 83, 84 to 100,
101 to 123, which is 22. Then this is episode 6. 124 to 139, which is 15. 140 to 160, straight up 20. 161 to 183, which is 22, another 22. And 184 to 206, which is 22. So the worst thing we're reading is 22s, 22s, 22s. Which isn't bad. And then we're going to go to the next book. So we actually are... How many episodes is this time? We are actually 1/5 done with this book, even though the book is barely started right now. It also ends on a cliffhanger, which kind of sucks. Because I've read this book in my past. It ends on a cliffhanger that I didn't really like. But there's a second book that just came out recently, so we're going to read that. So yeah, hope you guys have a fantastic, wonderful day. If you like, be a fisher, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye-bye.